I ran the factory floor for 22 years without a single major accident. You know what my reward was? A cardboard box for my belongings. My name is Kenny Harmon, 59 years old, lead foreman at Western Plains Manufacturing in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We produced industrial valves and pressure equipment for oil refineries. Precision work where mistakes could cost lives down the line. That Monday morning, Patricia from Human Resources called me into the conference room. Leonard Wright, the new operations director who'd been with us for barely 4 months, sat there with a spreadsheet. Clean hands, pressed shirt. The guy had never even set foot on my floor, except for the mandatory safety tour. Kenny, we're making some operational adjustments, Patricia said, sliding a folder across the table. The company is consolidating supervisory positions, Leonard chimed in, nodding. Market pressures, competitive restructuring. I opened the folder, severance package. 2 weeks to train my replacement. Half my pension would vest immediately. The other half would come as monthly payments. Even the company logo at the top looked different. They'd changed it last year without telling those of us working the floor. Your replacement starts tomorrow, Patricia added, like she was announcing the cafeteria menu. Jason Weber. He's got a business degree from Oklahoma State. Very promising. I closed the folder and stared at the wood grain in the table. 22 years. No major accidents. 346 employees went home safely under my watch, day after day. I had built the safety protocols they still used, designed the maintenance schedules they followed, trained every foreman and lead tech on that floor. Understand, I said quietly. Leonard looked relieved. Patricia's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. That night, I took the long way home, driving past the riverfront where the old refineries once stood. My father had worked there before the companies moved south. He used to tell me, Kenny, a man's worth is in what he builds, not what he says. I had built something at Western Plains, a system, a culture, a legacy, and now I had 2 weeks to hand it over to a kid who wouldn't understand what he was about to dismantle. When I got home, I called my old buddy Frank, who had retired last year. They're letting me go, I told him. Bastards, he said. You gonna raise hell? No, I said, but they'd figure it out soon enough. Some knowledge can't be transferred in 2 weeks. I hung up and stared at my work boots by the door. 22 years of factory grime that never fully washed away. They had no clue what they were losing. I'd started at Western Plains when my son Ethan was just a baby. Jennifer and I had been married for 4 years, and that job meant stability, health insurance, a future. 3 shifts a week at first, then supervisor after 3 years, assistant foreman after 7, and finally lead foreman after Jack Thompson retired. The floor was like my second home. I knew every machine by its sound. I could tell when the number 3 press was struggling before any warning light blinked. I could spot a safety hazard from across the room. I could smell when the hydraulic fluid needed changing and feel when the ambient temperature was off by 2 degrees. Jennifer used to joke that I cared more about that factory than our own house. Maybe she was right. After she left 10 years ago, taking Ethan with her to Colorado, I threw myself into my work. Holidays, weekends, storm days when half the crew couldn't make it. I was there. The company changed hands twice during my time. First, Midwest Industrial Group bought us in 2011. Not much changed. Then Axiom Partners took over in 2020, private equity guys with algorithms and efficiency metrics. They started cutting excess capacity immediately. I noticed it bit by bit. Maintenance budgets trimmed, cheaper parts suppliers, longer gaps between machine servicing. They laid off 3 of my best mechanics, replaced them with contract workers, and started pushing production quotas higher every quarter. 6 months ago, Leonard Wright arrived with his MBA and spreadsheets. He called a floor meeting during his first week. We're implementing new performance tracking across all departments. Data-driven decision-making is the future of manufacturing. After the meeting, my lead machinist Diego pulled me aside. Kenny, this guy's going to be trouble, he said. He asked if we could modify the safety lockout procedure to save time. I brushed it off and told Diego we'd manage, like we always had. But the warning signs kept coming. Leonard stopped attending the monthly safety reviews. Emails about equipment maintenance went unanswered. My requests for a training budget were denied 3 times. Then they hired 3 junior supervisors fresh out of college who started questioning procedures we had refined over decades. Kenny, is it really necessary to run a full diagnostic after every shift change? One asked. These daily inspections seem excessive. The manual only recommends weekly checks, another said. I started keeping my own records, dating and photographing maintenance requests, documenting every conversation about safety concerns. Something told me I might need proof one day. I just didn't expect that day to come so soon. The kid they brought in, Jason Weber, showed up in dress shoes and a tie his first day. 28 years old, gelled hair, constantly checking his tablet. I'm really excited to learn from you before I take over, he said, offering a firm handshake the way they teach in business school. I've already reviewed all the production metrics and found several efficiency opportunities. I nodded and handed him a pair of steel-toed boots and safety glasses. Floor tour first. Metrics later. For 2 weeks, I walked Jason through everything, showed him the maintenance schedules, the safety protocols, the personnel files. I introduced him to every shift supervisor and lead operator. But I noticed something as the days went by. He was taking notes about processes, but he was missing the people. He didn't ask Diego about his son, who had just joined the Marines. Didn't remember that Alicia on the assembly line needed extra break time for her diabetes. Didn't understand that sometimes you had to sweet-talk a reluctant machine operator on a double shift. The number 2 milling machine always groaned on cold mornings. On my final Thursday, I overheard Jason talking to Leonard in the break room. Once we roll out the new shift schedule, we can probably eliminate 2 maintenance positions, Jason said. And that extra safety redundancy Kenny insists on for the hydraulic press. The manual doesn't even require those additional checks. Leonard nodded, looking pleased. Exactly the kind of fresh thinking we needed. They didn't notice me standing nearby. I turned away quietly, something heavy settling in my gut. These weren't just cost-saving measures. They were stripping away the safeguards I'd spent decades building, protections that kept people from losing fingers, arms, or worse. That afternoon, I made up my mind. I called a meeting with my most trusted people, Diego, Alicia, Sam from maintenance, and Russell from the night shift. We gathered in the parking lot after hours. They're going to start cutting corners, I told them. And the new kid doesn't even know what he's messing with. What do you want us to do, Kenny? Diego asked. We can't just ignore the new boss. No, I agreed. But you can document everything. Keep your own records. And if things start going south with the equipment, I handed each of them my personal phone number written on index cards. Call me, not management, me. On my last day, I cleared out my locker while Jason was already sitting at my desk, rearranging everything. I handed him my keys. Any last advice? He asked, barely glancing up from his tablet. Yeah, I said. Listen to the floor. The machines will talk to you, if you know how to listen. He smiled politely, clearly not getting it. I walked out without fanfare. No party, no cake, no speeches. 22 years ended with a handshake from Patricia in HR and a parking lot exit badge that deactivated the moment I drove away. But I wasn't truly finished with Western Plains. I was just waiting. 3 weeks after I left, Diego called me. They're changing the maintenance schedule on the hydraulic presses, he said, voice low like he was hiding in the supply closet. Pushing inspections from weekly to bi-weekly. Document it, I told him. Note any pressure drops, leaks, unusual sounds. 2 days later, Sam from maintenance reached out. They denied my parts order for the backup generator, he said. Said it could wait until quarterly inventory. I kept a detailed log of every call, every change, every shortcut taken. At 4 weeks, I decided to escalate. I wrote a formal email to Leonard and Patricia, professional to the point. I've heard concerning reports about modifications to safety and maintenance protocols, I wrote. Having overseen these systems for over 2 decades, I would be happy to consult on potential risks these changes might create. Patricia responded within an hour. Thank you for your concern, Kenny. The transition has gone smoothly, and Jason has implemented several efficiency improvements already. We'll reach out if we need your expertise. Corporate speak for, stay away. At 6 weeks, the first incident occurred. Minor. A belt slipped on the number 3 press, causing a 2-hour shutdown. No injuries. Then a small hydraulic leak in week 7. 3 separate electrical failures in week 8. Russell called after each one. The new guy's blaming the equipment, he said. Claims it's outdated and poorly maintained. My blood boiled. That equipment had run flawlessly under proper care. By week 10, I couldn't take it anymore. I drove to the plant during the lunch break and waited in the parking lot. When Diego spotted me, I waved him over to my truck. How bad is it really? I asked. Diego glanced around before answering. Bad. Production's down 15%. They fired Sam last week. Claimed he was resistant to change. Jason's brought in one of his college buddies to run maintenance. Guy couldn't tell a torque wrench from a screwdriver. Anyone been hurt? That was my biggest worry. Not yet, but Russell nearly lost a hand when his safety switch failed on the cutting line. Jason blamed it on operator error. Right then, I made my decision. I knew people at the State Industrial Safety Board. One call could prompt an inspection. The next morning, I made that call. Explained my concerns, my background at the plant, and the specific risky changes. The inspector, a woman named Helen Barnes, took detailed notes. We'll conduct an unannounced inspection within the next 2 weeks, she assured me. I felt relieved. Finally, the system would correct itself. 3 days later, Diego called again, panic in his voice. They know, Kenny. Someone told management you were behind the inspection request. Leonard's furious. My stomach twisted. What's happening? I asked. They've got us working overtime, scrubbing everything clean, falsifying maintenance logs. They shut down production lines to fix all the problems before the inspectors show up. Then came the courier, a legal letter hand-delivered to my house. Western Plains Manufacturing was accusing me of malicious interference with business operations and breaching non-disclosure agreements. They threatened to sue if I continued spreading false information about company practices. I called my lawyer, Bill Henderson. He reviewed the letter. They're bluffing, he said. You haven't shared any proprietary information, but they could still drag you through court just to bury you in legal fees. Can they stop the inspection? I asked. No, Bill said. Once the safety board schedules it, it happens. But Kenny, be careful. These corporate types play dirty when they're cornered. I hung up, anger and anxiety churning inside me. They were trying to silence me, while scrambling to patch up the very problems I'd exposed. But what would happen after the inspection passed? They just go right back to cutting corners, only more carefully next time. I needed more than a single inspection. I needed solid proof of systemic negligence. The inspection came and went. Western Plains passed, but barely. Helen Barnes called me afterward. They addressed the immediate safety hazards, she said, but I flagged several concerns in my report. Their maintenance records were inconsistent, and several employees seemed coached in their answers. Will there be penalties? I asked. Minor ones, she replied. Not enough to force real change. I thanked her and hung up, frustrated but not surprised. Companies like Western Plains knew how to play the game. Fix the obvious issues, pay the minimal fines, then return to business as usual. That weekend, my doorbell rang. It was Russell, looking uneasy on my front porch. Sorry to bother you at home, Kenny, he said. I needed to show you something away from the plant. He handed me a thumb drive. What's this? I asked. Maintenance logs, he said, the real ones and the ones they fake for the inspection. Plus emails between Leonard and corporate about the cost-cutting initiative. They've been planning these reductions for a year, even before you were forced out. They needed someone who wouldn't fight back like you did. I invited Russell inside, and we spent hours going through the files. The picture that emerged was worse than I'd ever imagined. This wasn't just about replacing a seasoned veteran with a cheaper new manager. Western Plains was executing a company-wide strategy of deliberate underfunding of safety and maintenance, betting increased accident risks against quarterly savings. One email from an Axiom Partners executive chilled me to the bone. Insurance covers accidents. Missed earnings targets cost us investors. They were literally gambling with people's lives, my people, the ones I'd spent 22 years protecting. There's more, Russell said, pointing to another folder. Jason knows the equipment is failing. Look at these maintenance requests he denied. The list was staggering. Critical safety components, backup systems, preventive replacements. all turned down with the same note, deferred in next quarter per budget constraints. Why are you showing me this, Russell? I asked. This could cost you your job. Russell's expression hardened. Alicia's nephew got hurt yesterday, he said. Press guard failed. The one Jason said wasn't urgent to replace. Kid's 19. Lost 2 fingers. They're calling it operator error, making him sign statements while he was still doped up on pain meds. My hands clenched involuntarily. They can't do that. They're doing it, Russell said. And it's only a matter of time before something even worse happens. After Russell left, I sat at my kitchen table for hours, the evidence spread out in front of me. I was torn between outrage and duty. These weren't just numbers in a report. They were people. Families I knew. I picked up my phone to call the safety board again, then stopped. Another inspection wouldn't solve it. Western Plains would patch things up, pay another fine, and continue the cycle. No, this needed a different strategy. I called Diego, then Alicia, then 6 other trusted veterans from the floor. We arranged to meet at Frank's house the next evening, neutral ground. When everyone arrived, I laid out everything I'd discovered, showing them the evidence Russell had provided. So what do we do? Diego asked when I finished. Go to the press? I shook my head. Not yet. First, we need leverage. What kind of leverage? Alicia asked. The kind that hits them where it hurts. The bottom line, I said. I'm going to need records of every shortcut, every failure, every near miss since I left. Documented, dated, photographed, if possible. They'll fire anyone they catch collecting that kind of information, Frank pointed out. I know, I said. That's why we have to be smart about it. And patient. I looked around the room at these people, skilled workers who deserved better than to be treated like disposable parts in a corporate machine. Give me 2 weeks, I said. And whatever you do, keep your eyes open and stay safe. For the next 2 weeks, I became a ghost at Western Plains. I never set foot on the property, but my presence was there through Diego and the others, feeding me daily updates. Shift reports, equipment breakdowns, safety incidents. I compiled everything meticulously, building a case that couldn't be ignored. Meanwhile, I made 3 critical moves. First, I reached out to George Lawson, a former client who now worked for Meridian Energy Solutions, Western Plains' largest customer. We met for coffee at a diner 20 minutes from the plant. Kenny, good to see you, George said, shaking my hand. Been wondering where you disappeared to. Forced retirement, I said. But that's not why I asked you to meet. I showed him photos of defective pressure valves that had shipped out from Western Plains in the past month, valves that would be installed in Meridian systems. These passed inspection? George asked, frowning. Under the new inspection standards, yes, I said. Corner cutting has consequences, George. I couldn't stay quiet if there was a chance someone could get hurt at one of your facilities. George studied the photos closely. This is serious, Kenny. We've got 30-year ties with our suppliers, but safety comes first. All I'm asking, I said, is for Meridian to run its own independent quality audit. See for yourself. My second move was reaching out to Helen Barnes again at the safety board. This time, instead of general complaints, I provided concrete, documented violations with dates, times, and photographic proof. This is far more substantial than before, Helen said. Helen said, I'll need to bring my supervisor in on this. I understand, I told her. Just please keep my name out of it for now. The third move was the riskiest. I contacted Jason Weber directly and asked him to meet me for lunch away from the plant. To my surprise, he agreed. He looked exhausted when he arrived at the restaurant. Dark circles under his eyes, his collar slightly askew. I appreciate you meeting me, I said after we ordered. How's the floor running? Jason ran a hand through his hair. Honestly, it's a disaster. Equipment's failing left and right, and corporate's breathing down my neck about production quotas. But I can't hit the numbers with half the line breaking down every other day. They didn't tell you what you were walking into, did they? I said. They told me the operation needed modernizing, that you were resistant to change. But every time I try to fix something, 3 more issues pop up. I nodded. That's because they dismantled a system that worked. Those maintenance schedules you scrapped. They weren't excessive. They were essential. Leonard says the budget can't support that level of maintenance. And how's that budget working out now, with production dropping and quality problems escalating? Jason's silence said it all. Listen, I said, I didn't ask you here to gloat. I asked because in about 2 weeks, several things are going to happen. Meridian Energy is going to demand a quality audit. The safety board is going to conduct another surprise inspection, and evidence of systemic safety violations is going to land on multiple desks, including corporate headquarters. Jason paled. Are you threatening me? No, I'm giving you a choice. You can either be the fall guy when this collapses, the inexperienced manager who couldn't handle the job, or you can get ahead of it. How? By documenting everything Leonard and corporate forced on you. Every maintenance request you submitted and they rejected, every safety issue they ignored. Jason stared at his untouched plate. They'll fire me. Maybe, I said, but you'll be doing the right thing, and you won't have a preventable death on your conscience. I left Jason my card. Think about it. You've got 1 week. 3 days later, he texted me. I'm in. What do you need from me? The pieces were finally falling into place. Now, we just needed one final push, something that would force Western Plains to face the results of their decisions. Almost on cue, the #1 hydraulic press, the heart of the production line, catastrophically failed the very next day. Luckily, no one was injured, but production ground to a halt. The crisis moment had arrived. My phone rang at 6:15 a.m. It was Leonard Wright himself. Kenny, he said, the strain clear his voice. We have a situation at the plant. So I've heard, I replied calmly. The shutdown had been all over the plant group chat by midnight. Look, I'll be direct. We need your expertise. The main press is down, production stopped, and orders are backing up. Our maintenance team can't identify the problem. That's because you fired Sam, who maintained that press for 15 years, I pointed out. Leonard sighed heavily. Can we set aside the past for now? The company's willing to bring you in as a consultant to get us operational again. I'm listening. $300 an hour cash. No questions asked about how you fix it. We just need it running by the end of the week. I almost laughed. They really thought this was about money. I'll be there in an hour, I said. But I have conditions. 1. I bring my own team, Diego, Russell, and Alicia. 2. I have full authority over repair decisions and parts orders. 3. I want access to all maintenance records from the past 6 months. Leonard hesitated, then finally said, fine, whatever it takes. When I arrived at the plant an hour later, the place was chaos. Operators stood idle. Managers huddled in corners, whispering urgently. The massive hydraulic press sat silent and dead. Jason approached me immediately. Thank God you're here. It's worse than I thought. I nodded. Let's take a look. As I inspected the press, everything became crystal clear. Multiple system failures, all caused by months of neglected maintenance. Exactly what I had warned about. I turned to Leonard, who was hovering nearby. I can fix this, I said. But first, I need to show you something. I pulled out my phone and opened my email. I just sent this report to the Axiom Partners executive team, the State Safety Board, and Meridian Energy Solutions. It details every safety violation, every corner cut, every risk your policies created. Leonard's face went pale. You can't do that. I already have, I said. Now, do you want this press fixed or not? 3 days. That's how long it took to repair the hydraulic press. A repair that would have been a routine maintenance job if they'd followed my original schedules. During those 3 days, Western Plains went through a whirlwind of fallout. Meridian Energy suspended their orders pending a full quality review. The safety board arrived for another, far more thorough, inspection. And Axiom Partners sent their own operations team to audit the situation. By day 3, Leonard was gone, reassigned to corporate headquarters. Jason remained, but in a diminished role, now reporting to a new operations director sent by the parent company. That new director, Thomas Whitfield, called me into his office after we got the press running again. Impressive work, he said. The corporate team reviewed your documentation, very thorough. I waited silently. We're implementing a complete overhaul of maintenance and safety protocols at all our facilities, Thomas continued. And we'd like to offer you a position, Director of Manufacturing Operations for Western Plains. I considered the offer. At what salary? Thomas named a figure, 30% higher than my previous pay, and complete autonomy over maintenance schedules and safety protocols within reasonable budget limits. I shook my head. That's the problem. Safety can't be budgeted quarter by quarter. I stood to leave, then paused. I'll consult. 3 days a week. My hourly rate. I'll help you rebuild the systems I created, train your people properly, and get production back where it should be. But I won't be an employee again. Thomas thought about it, then nodded. Acceptable. I didn't go back for the title or the paycheck. I went back for Diego and Alicia and Russell and all the others who deserve to work in a safe place. I went back to rebuild what I had spent 22 years creating. When I walked onto the floor that next Monday, the machines were already humming more smoothly. They knew their old caretaker had returned.